Well, once again, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Morning Briefing. I'm Jeff DeForest, along with Mike Lubitz, and much to get to in a short period of time today, as we do have to pay homage to one of the greats who passed away yesterday. The great third baseman for the Baltimore Orioles, played all 23 years of his career. Lubie, with the Baltimore Orioles, I know you weren't born when this guy was playing, but heralded by many as the greatest third baseman of all time. Defensively, certainly, his lifetime batting average of 267. Not necessarily going to put him up there with the Mike Schmidts of the universe and so many other third basemen that were better hitters. Although earlier in his career, his stats were kind of diminished and watered down a little bit because he might have been hanging around a little bit too long. Huh? That year he hit 201. Even the most faithful of bird watchers had to be saying, "It's time to fly the coop there, Brooksy.
Yeah.
Time you hang it up. Hang up the cleats." But no, great player. 16 gold gloves, 18 times an All-Star, Hall of Fame, 92% of the vote when he was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1983. So was he not a first ballot Hall of Famer, Brooks Robinson? He would not have been because he retired in like 71 or 72, something like that.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, did he have to wait a while? The great Brooks Robinson, that's a disgrace when you see some of the people that get consideration for the Baseball Hall of Fame. But all that being said, how do I find out about this, Louis? There was no speculation that there was something happening with Brooks Robinson. I had heard nothing about him being hospitalized or, going into some unfortunate form of hospice care or any of those things. How do I hear about the passing of a guy that I greatly admired as a fan of baseball growing up? I mean, we didn't get to see out of town teams that often. You would see them when they played the Yankees, the Baltimore Orioles. You had no interleague play. So even in the 60s, the heyday for Brooks Robinson, you didn't get to see him taking on the New York Mets unless it was in postseason play. And of course, the standout, he was the MVP of the 1970 World Series. And as Johnny Bench put it, every hit that I got in that World Series went straight into the glove of Brooks Robinson, who made any number, Louis, of dazzling plays. I mean, it was a circus act out there. But how do I find out about this great, tremendous icon of sport and the fact that he had passed away? My wife screams from upstairs in the bedroom and she yells down, "She did it! She did it!" I'm like, "Who's she? And she did what?"
What did she do?
Usually it's the woman that's asking a guy when
Yeah.
you happen to be caught red-handed with, even glancing at another woman. Libby, I know you get a lot of this. Who's she? Which is a question that no man has an answer to. There is no good answer. You go Ralph Cramden on that. Who's she? There's no good answer.
No, it never works well. Even if you did
So
nothing wrong.
the wife screaming from upstairs, "She did it! She did it!" I'm like, "She did what? Who is she?" So it turned out it was a friend of hers who was involved in a Deadpool. And of course, who does she have? Brooks Robinson.
Oh, jeez.
Now, there's an issue of moral consideration there about being A, in a Deadpool to begin with, and then B, celebrating the fact that somebody had passed away. I look at it from a different angle here on No Filter.
Okay.
And that's the reason that we're on No Filter. I believe, okay, the guy's dead anyway, or the person, whoever you happen to draw in a Deadpool that passed away. And I've had no luck in these pulls. I've lost every time that I've invested in Deadpool opportunities. I've had guys that I had drawn that later on, after somebody had hit the pool, when you go back and redraw the names, and then sure enough, like Tommy Lasorda checks out. And you're like, "Oh, yeah, Tommy." You hate to think of it this way, but I mean, are you really thinking because you have money on it? And these are large stacks of cash that are won in these pools because the carryover is, fairly significant. In this case, our friend ended up splitting. She had a partner in this thing, $30,000.
Wow.
Should I be talking about this, or is this going to cause some kind of government intervention with the show and
It is what it is.
No Filter loses its license, even though it is No Filter? You're not rooting for somebody to die, though. I mean, and I have no luck in it, Louis. I mean, the last name I drew was Jimmy Carter.
God, he's still here.
And I'm a fan of Jimmy Carter, the humanitarian aspect of what this man has done since he was the president. It wasn't the best of times when he was president. Was he sincere? Seemed like it. Was Billy a nut job? Yeah. A lot of parallels here to Joe Biden, aren't there? There's always a
Absolutely.
family member, the mutant family member, right?
100%.
Hunter Biden, what is he doing? He's in the Ukraine smoking crack and picking up billions of dollars. It's a little suspect. Nobody would argue that.
A little.
It's yeah. I mean, you end up thinking to yourself, how crazy is it that you're not rooting for somebody's death, but yet there's a cause for celebration that somebody checked out. And in this case, Brooks Robinson, this young lady who is a hardworking person, works in bars, bartending, serving, is in her 50s, and she picks up 13 and a half dimes off the fact
Wow.
that Brooks Robinson checked out.
Jesus.
Me, I get Jimmy Carter, and you know what? He could go into hospice care. What has he been in hospice for like 6 years? It's good. There was a case here in Florida many years ago that I often reference, where a woman named Terry Schiavo was in a coma for like 30 years.
It was like 20 years, yeah.
And the governor, Jeb Bush at the time, would not, because he was this pro-life advocate or whatever. I mean, even though this woman had been dead for 30 years,
Mhm.
she's a carcass.
Yep.
And they would not let the family, who's sitting there crying, pleading with every legal possibility that they can muster up to take her off life support. And the governor is nixing this stuff.
Yep.
And so she went on for forever. I mean, it was literally like the last 45 minutes of $1 Million Baby, which we've
Yep.
referenced here on the show,
Yep.
where Hillary Swank is there, and you're screaming, "Die already!" But it isn't that way. I mean, I know my approach to it was not that way. Although Jimmy Carter's still very much alive, and meantime, like Brooks Robinson checks out, unbelievable, out of nowhere. So we pay homage. So I was always involved in an argument, Lubie, about, and I know we've discussed this, and you're not familiar, but with the great, unbelievable defensive skills and dexterity of not Ken Boyer, who was a well-known player and was also a standout third baseman in the field, but he was much more well-known than his brother Cleet, who played for the Yankees for several years, and who I got to watch more frequently than other guys. And I was a highly critical baseball observer at that time. I mean, if we thought a guy was horrible, we didn't hesitate to call him out. This was New York City, my friend,
Mhm.
and I was a kid growing up in the streets. You weren't afraid to, tell the Mick to go fuck himself if he went 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. That's the way it was. We thought that Clete Boyer was the greatest defensive third baseman of all time. And I can't tell you the countless number of arguments I had with friends of mine about whether it was Brooks Robinson or Clete Boyer, best defensive player among the two. It was like an old argument in LA when the Big Red Machine was popular, and I used to hear, the origins of sports talk. And there was a guy on the air, and he had every day his topic was, who's the better shortstop? Can you imagine? This was the origin of this business. Bill Russell or Dave Concepcion?
Oh,
Bill
wow.
Russell was with the Dodgers, Concepcion, Big Red Machine, big rivals. There was no question who the better shortstop was. It was Concepcion by
Mm,
like late years.
man.
Bill Russell was good, but he couldn't hit like Concepcion. Concepcion was a monster hitter in the middle of the lineup there, or early in the lineup for the Big Red Machine, for God's sake. Pete
Yep.
Rose leading off. You got Tony Perez. You got Johnny Bench.
Yep.
All of these great players.
From Morgan.
And Concepcion was right there with him. Yeah, Joe Morgan flapping an elbow.
Yep.
How did he ever hit a ball after doing it? That was crazy. He thought it was more likely to fly away at home plate. But anyway, that was the big argument. Was Clete Boyer a better defensive third baseman than Brooks Robinson? The stats, I mean, baseball history would indicate that maybe we were a little far fetched in that. One Gold Glove versus 16. Would you say the evidence, Mr.
Yes.
Simpson, is overwhelming to indicate your guilt in this particular matter? I don't know. As Johnny Cochran. Anyway, we mourn the passing of the great Brooks Robinson, but congratulations to my friend Kat. $13,500 to the good. And that was on a 50-50 split with somebody after they took out the juice for running the
Okay.
contest.
Okay.
And now it rolls over again. So, well, we'll see what happens. And I had no luck in that kind of stuff. You would want me to draw your name in a Deadpool, because you will then be destined to live forever. Jesus Christ couldn't take you out of this stuff. If I have your name in the Deadpool. a huge, a fan. It wasn't like I wasn't a fan, but I like any international competition. I don't know. I mean, do you ascribe a lot of importance to the Ryder Cup, who wins the Ryder Cup, or do you really care?
I don't
I
understand
root
the
for the
sport.
U.S. with all of my fibers to win any international competition. I'm a red-blooded American.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I'm American too. I just don't
Okay,
understand the
but is
sport.
it of any great significance?
I
Unless Phil has money on it, which we were talking about the other day. It is true. You put $5 on a ball game, it takes on insurmountable and exponentially more meaning than it did previously. Right? I could have given a flying one about do I care about Washington State and Oregon State? I didn't even know that guy Ukulele was still a college player. Ukulele of Oregon State, the quarterback there, used to be with Clemson. He's been in college longer than Blutarski. I mean, it's like 7 years. I love that now that a college player like Chris Wenke, could be in his 30s and still be eligible. Well, he's in a graduate course. Now, what's he taking? Yeah, we don't know. He doesn't have enough credits to maintain his eligibility as a freshman, but somehow he's in like the PhD program at Alabama. Hey, Nick, what's he studying? I don't know. Anyway, the Ryder Cup, the big controversy is Justin Thomas, Lubie. Justin Thomas, a good player. I respect him. I'm a fan of his. If I'm involved in any golf pools, I always consider using Justin Thomas, although it's probably a mistake because he either missed the cut or was beyond 60th place in all of the majors this year. He didn't even make that FedEx thing where, like, they take the top 100 and they all, make it out themselves with the FedEx business. But he was a choice, a captain's choice over guys that were probably far more qualified and more deserving of being on the Ryder Cup team, which these golfers take as a huge distinction. They really do. I mean, they take it seriously. You can go all the way back to Ken Venturi and his many broadcasts, Louis. And the guy, what would he be talking about? Well, look at that. Lee Trevino just missed that putt. That's going to cost him, several $100,000. But more importantly, it's going to cost him 6 Ryder Cup points. And you're thinking, I'm sure Lee Trevino, who was out there hustling golf, when he was a teenager there and playing left-handed, so he could up the stakes a little bit. Is more concerned about the 6 Ryder Cup points than he was about the couple of 50 grand back then, what was probably the entire winner's share. So, big differential. But the Ryder Cup seems to be a tremendous distinction for these golfers to be on the team, no? Your man Brooks Koepka, he's so happy that they took a guy off the Live Tour because he happened to, win one of the majors this year. And, what was it, the PGA one, I believe, either PGA or the U.S. Open. And, that put him on the team. And he thought, wow, this is, aside from the money, that Saudi blood money, that this is really the kind of thing that I like to see happen in my career. It meant a lot to him. But this Justin Thomas, what was kind of, I mean, if they had taken Marlo Thomas, it would have created less controversy, I think. So we'll see what happens. I don't know how meaningful it is to people. The tournament is being, the competition is going on in Rome, Italy, and it gets underway on Friday and then concludes Sunday morning before the National Football League games, which I don't get any ESPN Plus. Do you, Lubie? ESPN Plus? You do? Okay.
I do.
Well, you ante up to $5, or is that just part of
I have some package where I get it. I don't think I've ever watched anything on it, but I get it.
It's the Jaguars and the Falcons.
Ooh, scintillating.
From London, England. Jags, Falcons. The Jags, who were not really all that competitive against the Kansas City Chiefs this past week. And so far, you would have to say the Jags are, is it fair to say, a bit of a disappointment early in the season?
Yep.
Off to a slow start.
Yep.
A lot of people, there were people that have money riding on the fact that the Jags would be the AFC champions this year.
Peter King has him in the Super Bowl. One and only Peter King.
Will he be wearing a disguise when he shows up in Las Vegas? For the people he buried with that selection? Monday morning quarterback, my ass, Pete. They're going to give it to him. They're going to be giving him the business, the old Ben Dry thing, once he gets there. Be walking around trying to disguise himself as Tim Tebow. Hey, Tim, who do you think's going to win?
Exactly.
Tebow, man, with that entourage at the Super Bowl, that was exceptional. Biggest entourage we've ever seen. I mean, Tupac Shakur didn't have this kind of an entourage when he was rapping. Tim Tebow at the Radio Row for the Super Bowl. That was pretty incredible. Has Tim Tebow said anything of any great interest in any of his broadcasts yet?
Never.
No? Never.
Never.
All right. All right, so I'm going to root for the Americans there. I don't know who Phil has money on, but I would imagine, wow, I mean, that would really spark a little bit of controversy if he was rooting against his home team in the Ryder Cup competition. And, we'll see how it shakes out. U.S. hasn't won on European soil. I always like the way they put that, as if, that they were just playing in muck. Well, they might be. I don't know. What are the courses like in Rome, Italy? Are they anything like those, British Open courses where, they have Venus flytraps lining the fairway? Your ball just gets sucked up, and it won't be good. I'm going to root for Justin Thomas to have a good run there, because if he doesn't, you're thinking that this is going to be all the conversation, whether or not the United States. As if the U.S. wins, that'll overwhelm the sentiment about the fact that they picked a stiff because of a good old boys connection there. Who's it? Keegan Bradley. That's the guy. There's always the guy that gets left off the All-Star team that people are bitching about. This is the guy that they're screaming. Tiger Woods is yelling from some laboratory where he's getting injections right now. Enough tactical. You got enough of that juice to me to shoot 63. What are you talking about? He's screaming. Hank Haney is screaming right here on No Filter. This is one of the most massive pieces of injustice ever worked since Monahan sold out all of his players on the PGA Tour and said, guess what? We're working for the Saudis.
Exactly.
All right. That's your morning briefing for today. We have a vested interest in the Miami Marlins today, a doubleheader after a washout against the Mets.
Fish.
Half game out of the wild card spot. This would be remarkable if this bunch of baseball bag ladies was able to make it to the postseason this year. It would trigger many, I think, postseason award considerations, including Kim Eng for General Manager of the Year and possibly as the candidate for manager. He would have to. Let's go. I mean, should be we need them on through with a doubleheader sweep today and put themselves with about what they would have 4 games to go and a chance to make the postseason. And what would be a rather remarkable year. All right, that'll do it for us. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks, Michael. As always, a pleasure, my friend. And thanks to the people at No Filter for putting up with us. So we will have another edition for you of the morning briefing tomorrow, right here on No Filter. From Mike Lubie Lubitz, I'm Jeff DeForest. Thanks so much for tuning in.